For more on China's banking sector, I'm now joined live by Henry Yu. He's with us from Atlanta. He is Chief Operating Officer of Asian Investors Consortium. Henry, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jessica.
So we've got earnings reports from China's second and third largest lenders, China Construction Bank and Agricultural Bank of China, both beating analyst estimates. We expect to get full year results this week for some of the other big banks. What are we in for, do you think?
I think, the last year's bank profitability, I think overall is going to be probably from flat to maybe less than 2% growth, which is not uncommon, I think, the last few years. Prior to 2014, you're looking at double-digit net incomes growth. But I think this is going to be tough for this year as well as next year.
Let's talk about small banks for a moment. There's been some concerns about the health of small banks in China. We know the PBOC has launched this new evaluation system for bank health. What are we learning from that review?
Well, the key is for some of the smaller banks, their funding base is quite limited, and certainly it's difficult for them to compete with the big boys, the big five Chinese banks, and certainly also foreign banks operating in China. But I think the key issue is even the small banks. A good example, the 30th largest bank in China, you're looking at banks with assets of probably over 100 billion. So that's not that small by international standards.
Not at all. Credit, of course, has been something everybody's watching in China. Last summer, the IMF warned that debt levels were high in the Chinese banking system. How much progress has been made to curb that at this point?
Well, certainly, I think the central bank realized the seriousness of the banking sector. And certainly, I think this year, as well as 2018, is going to be just as difficult, if not more difficult than 2016, with depressed earnings and reducing net interest margin, higher credit costs. Certainly, the banks are in for the next two to 3 years. But the comforting level is that at least in terms of non-performing loans, I think you basically look into a economy, a country that on a consumer side, the consumers are really picking up consumer debt, but the level is still manageable. It will be more corporate failures, but I think the central bank has done a great job in terms of opening up, liberalizing interest rate. I think let the market economy run its course. And
consumer spending, of course, is important to get going. Shadow banking, that business of shadow banking has really exploded since this credit crunch. It kind of follows some of the actions that we're talking about with respect to evaluation. Beijing does want to shrink about $3 trillion in the shadow banking sector. How are they faring at this point? Because that's a pretty new initiative.
Well, this is a new initiative also coupled with the governments and central banks decide to regulate shadow banking. Keep in mind, shadow banking is an important component of the overall banking sector in China. Certainly, I think in going forward, I guess my view is that really there will be more activities from central bank. And also, this is, again, shadow banking is one way to really let the market dictate interest rate in terms of loans and deposits. So this is a step in the right direction. But I think the government should take more proactive approach in terms of addressing the shadow banking sector as well as the formal banking sector. And my suggestion is really, in going forward, there should be more asset-backed securitization, basically allowing the banks to securitize their lending portfolio so to free up more money funding for SME and small and medium-sized enterprise lending, which is a key issue in China.
I was just going to raise it, in fact. That's been an ongoing effort. Every time there are political meetings in Beijing, we often hear about the desire to encourage more lending to small and medium enterprises. How is that faring, and what are some steps that we may see throughout the balance of this year on that?
I think it's happening very slowly, certainly, but keep in mind, too, I think after the 2008 global financial crisis, I think the government was basically sitting back and reanalyzing the whole situation with securitizing bank assets. As a matter of fact, prior to around the same time, I think it was November of 2008, there's one actually medium-sized Chinese bank that securitized its SME loan portfolio. So China has done the right thing in 2008, but because of the global financial crisis, I think the banking regulator, they will shy away from doing more. So I'm seeing more bank securitization in terms of freeing up more money to lend to SMEs. And certainly, I think there were more than 20 new banks that were set up the last couple of years, and that will probably fill the gap, but that's not enough.
All right. Well, everybody is connected, as you rightly point out. Henry Yu, live for us in Atlanta. Thanks for your time.